a Sockness Spice Hour, where I give some tips and insights from what it's like to live in this wonderful career world, and all the different aspects, whether you are a job seeker, a manager, HR, a recruitment sourcer, what have you. And on this week's episode, I'm going to cover a kind of sensitive subject for many reasons, but I'm going to give some tips on interviewing, kind of like I did when I was talking about how to interview as a candidate. But this time, I'm going to discuss the opposite side of that coin on how to interview and good practices for when you're the manager or HR who is doing the actual interviewing. And so that's why I say it's kind of a sensitive subject. Not all managers or folks in that kind of capacity really want to always take insights. A lot of times they know what they're doing, and that's great. So these are strictly just some little tidbits, little tips to keep in mind, just to make things go smoother, and hopefully increase your talent acquisition and bringing in that awesome person that you need for your team. So let's dive right in. So my first tip, which is very similar to the interviewer, is being on time. When people come in for interviews, a lot of time there's a lot of emotion there. There's nerves, there's anxiety, there could be excitement, there could be fear. And the last thing they want is to be placed into a room and then asked to kind of wait arbitrarily. Just to sit there, not know what's going on, not be engaged with in any capacity. And then as the time goes on, that fear, that anxiety, that excitement just continues to build. As well as it kind of can put a bad taste in their mouth. If the person doing the interview and the hiring kind of doesn't seem to really be committed to meeting with the interviewer, it can put a negative aspect on your company culture of what it's like to be an employee at this company. If even the very first interaction is having a negative or a bad taste in their mouth, it sets a really negative tone and precedent for a potential career growth. So if the interviewer could kind of care less to be respectful of time, it can also make the person in the interview feel like they're not valued from day one. So always keep that in mind. And I know things come up, and I know people might be, running a little bit late, but there's ways to engage and keep the candidate entertained in a sense, to let them know that it's nothing against them, it's nothing against the company culture. There's these extenuating circumstances, but best practice, try to eliminate as many of those as possible so you can be respectful of time. The next point, which I personally think is one of the most important, is understanding that the candidate is coming in because they want the job. That's usually how it's focused. But as the manager or the HR professional or the person in charge of hiring, really, it's your job to sell yourself and your company just as much, if not more important, than it is for the candidate to sell themselves to you. You are wanting this person to join your team. You're wanting to make your team as strong as possible. And you also need to make your company appealing. Why would this person want to accept an offer from your company? A lot of the candidates I speak with when they're in the passive talent realm, they are interviewing at multiple places. They might have offers at 2 or 3 or even 4 or 5 locations. So when you meet with them, understand that you need to sell yourself just as much as you're asking them to sell themselves. It's very detrimental if you go into an interview as kind of a panel of judges and have the attitude of, well, you need to impress me. I'm here because it's my job, but you want a job, impress me. That attitude can really be detrimental to not only making that relationship with the candidate, but then just that company culture that you're presenting. A lot of times folks see what your company looks like through the internet, But now this is the first time they're going to meet somebody who's actually part of that culture. So you want to make sure you're representing yourself and your company in the very best light. So sell yourself, make yourself and your company number one. So if they do have multiple interviews, if they do have multiple offers, none of that matters because they're going to remember you and what you stand for and what your company stands for, and you're the place that they want to be. So really always keep that in the forefront of your mind, and it'll definitely enhance your interview and your interview skills because you'll be able to have more of those kind of personable, professional discussions. My third tip is don't judge a book by its resume. So what I mean by that is a lot of the times managers' first insight or first glimpse into a candidate's life is strictly their resume. Piece of paper, maybe two, depending on how it's formatted. And this represents a snapshot of this person's professional life. Therefore, it's so important to look beyond the piece of paper or the PDF file or whatever format it might come to you at. A lot of times what you see on the paper is strictly facts, but it doesn't cover the underlying professional skills that go with the facts. Someone might say that they have a certificate in a certain computer program. However, that doesn't also bring in the fact that they are good at communication and they're personable and they're organized and they're analytical. You know, you just see a small little certification sentence, but there's so many more underlying factors that go into that. A lot of times you might see somebody who has several different jobs. They don't outline though that they were under contract, or maybe it was the same company and they did different roles and the formatting is just a little bit misleading. So it's so important that when you do get a resume and you're looking over the facts, the fact sheet of this person, that you understand that you need to look beyond that. You need to see what's at face value, but always understand and request and be curious about what other skills are underneath that, because there's so much more. And if you strictly just look at it as this is the person 100%, whatever they are on paper is who they are, you're going to do yourself and your company a huge disservice. Because not everybody is a professional resume writer. I do encourage folks to train and learn how to be better at writing resumes. However, I strongly believe that even the best resume ever written in the history of resume writing still only will show a glimpse of who that person really is. So take the time, really look at it, kind of analyze it a little bit deeper than just what's written there. And then always know that the interview is now the point where you can extract that extra information to really unearth the talent that you're trying to bring into your company. And finally, and this is a little bit mixed in with the interviewing and kind of the entire process, but always make sure that you do diligent and timely follow-up, whether it's directly from the manager to the candidate, or if you're working with an agency or a recruiting specialist like myself, allowing us to get that feedback so we can go and interact with the candidate as soon as possible. Even if it's just that you need more time, even if it's just that you're still evaluating or there's still other candidates in the process, it's super important that you don't leave people in the dark. It puts another bad taste in their mouth of, does this company really care about who they're hiring or care about their candidate experience? As well as it just is very anxiety driven. You know, you're sitting there and you're wondering, you know, how many times have you ever interviewed for a place and you've literally never heard anything back? It really makes it hard for you to want to maybe apply again. It puts that, like I said, that bad taste in your mouth. Like, what does this company really stand for if they can't even give me a quick call, text, or email just letting me know? Even if it's a rejection, it's much more important that people get that information than just kind of get ghosted. So always follow up. Try your best to make it as timely as possible. There might be circumstances where it might last longer than 24 to 48 hours before there's feedback. But like I said, even that feedback that strictly just asks for more time, that's better than nothing. And so with that, I'm going to conclude my tips for working on the opposite side of the interview spectrum. But if you have any tips yourself, any tricks, any ideas for future videos or to enhance your own interviewing process, I'd love to hear them. So